The toy books were an interesting publishing phenomenon that was developed in England by the master printer Edmund Evans. The brothers William and Samuel Calvert brought those same techniques to Australia in the production of this book, This is the Hut That Jack Built. Now in this story, the rhyme of This is the House That Jack Built is used within the Australian setting. Toy books are an unusual form of producing books for children. They basically employed woodblock prints. One huge sheet of paper was put on carved woodblock prints for each successive colour. So that single large sheet went through the printing press a number of times. That large sheet of paper was then cut up into a number of double-page spreads and simply folded in half and sewn down the middle. It's a very simple form of book production, but very effective. There is an image on one side or text on one side of a page and blank on the other. And that's a telltale sign of the method of production of this type of item. The way that the text and the image was constructed was within framed borders. This was to allow the printer to make sure the page was placed at the correct angle. Sometimes you can see the variations where there is a slight movement, the difference between the colour and the border. In England, very bright colours were used, and in Australia it's interesting that the Calvert brothers used muted colours, indicative of the Australian landscape. So the green of the trees is much more an Australian green, though you do see pictures of flowers, and certainly the pristine floor of the hut is quite idealistic, but there is still very much an Australianness about the images. And the story is about how a snake enters that hut to drink from a large pail of milk set on the table. The snake leaves the hut and is taken by a kookaburra, and the kookaburra is ambushed by an eagle. The boy, in an expression of his masculinity, shoots the eagle and then mounts it outside their house, with the kookaburra looking on as the boy is triumphant in his conquest. It's a style of story, children with guns, that you don't see in children's books today. The images used in this are to reflect an Australian landscape, and a departure from that is the boy's costume. He looks very English, especially his hat. But this was late 19th century, and it is conceivable that you did get sons and their fathers travelling throughout the outback looking for a place to establish a home for the women back in England. And the costume may have been quite totally inappropriate for an Australian landscape. The back cover shows the advertisements that were used to advertise many series, both in Europe and America and in Australian publications. And this shows that the Calvert Australian picture book series had 4 items in that series: the alphabet book, the This is the Hut That Jack Built in Australia, and 2 others. These items are very rare now, but really important in terms of Australia's literary history. The last 2 books in this series, unfortunately, we don't have copies of, but clearly they show quite a racist portrayal of both the Chinese and Aboriginal people at the time.